Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Firstly, yes, John Morrissey, Thames-Coromandel District Council. I'd like to acknowledge you, Mr. Chair, being here today, mayors, deputy mayors and councillors for the time and effort you put in, not forgetting you, David, over there, a very special part of this committee. So, yeah, I appreciate all the time you've put in to these hearings. I do know what it's like going through submissions, the time it takes, the hearing itself, the deliberations afterwards. It's no small effort. So thank you very much. I know most of you from the Regional Land Transport Forum, and I'm aware of the empathy that forum has had as far as the Coromandel district is concerned. We are one region, Coromandel part of that region, but Coromandel with its own special problems because of its geographical nature. So today you'll be hearing from our CEO and other members of the elected arm from Coromandel as to how they deal with these issues. You have heard heaps from the Mayor of the TCDC about our position, so you are very familiar with it. Hopefully there'll be some more information come through today that will enlighten you even more so. So to my left is Aileen, our Chief Executive Officer. You may or may not be familiar with her. She has a depth of local body experience, having come to us 2 years ago from Opotiki on the back of COVID, only to be hit with storm after storm. And we're very lucky to have her. She is very experienced and she's an asset to our council. To her left, you have Stephen, our project recovery manager. He also has a depth of experience with local government and projects. So both these people are worth listening to. They have words of wisdom to share with you.
Thank you, Councillor John, and morning. Luckily, John's pronounced your name Aileen. I thought it was a silent A, and I was going to call you Eileen. So, welcome. Good afternoon, Aileen and Stephen.
Thank you. I've been called worse things than Eileen, so that's great. Yeah, and thank you for that introduction, John. It was interesting when I first arrived. A crack appeared on State Highway 25A, and I worked with the same Waka Kotahi people down in Opotiki, and one of them rang me up and said, that crack on the road looks remarkably like the crack on State Highway 35 when I was in Opotiki, which was imminently followed by a collapse, and there was the road to Te Kaha was completely trashed. So they kind of implied that was my fault, that I turned up and the road fell off. But it is true, the moment I arrived it started raining, which, as you all know, that in that 12-month period, the Coromandel had 6 metres of rain, which is phenomenal. I think on its driest year, there was 2 metres of rain. So the scale of the rainfall event was pretty significant. The sad part is that that's probably going to be repeated as we see increased variability with climate change into the future. So after one of those events, they all merged into one, to be honest, where there were so many of them in a row. But after one of those events, we sent a helicopter out across the peninsula and mapped something like 300 major slits onto the network across the peninsula. The impact on the community you'll hear from the speakers that are following, but in terms of council, the impact was huge. And for all the councils, COVID was a pretty difficult time because we were having to work remotely and not see each other face to face and not be able to get out and do things. The events of the last 12 months were similar. We had challenges getting waste off the peninsula. The trucks couldn't get out, which meant waste was just, accumulating. We had all sorts of health and safety issues with staff. We had staff unable to get out to do basic maintenance, assets and so on. The impacts on the community were huge, and within a 2-month period, the Mayor and I had something like 1,000 emails from people going, this is broken, when are you going to fix it? And to quote somebody who made a comment to me, it was like a fire hose of demand, basically, coming out of the district for any number of things. And as you all know, it usually only takes about 10 posts on Facebook on anything before council becomes responsible for it. And that's effectively what we faced over a period of 12 months. And sitting behind that is a massive amount of angst in the community. So just, I wanted to make an acknowledgement out of these events during and after. Just the working relationship with Waka Kotahi has been absolutely outstanding. We got to know their contractors really well, and their contractors got to know us quite well. They were in and out of our emergency operating centre as though they were part of our organisation. And for me, I think that's how local government should work. We should be working hand in hand like that in these events. And the work that went in really quickly after the event to developing up the investment case around what's needed on the peninsula to avoid these things happening in future was just phenomenal. And to my sort of lay understanding of the technical details of roading, it's partly about catch-up investment. I know that investment across some of those roads, I think they were goat tracks that were then tar sealed, turned into a gravel track and then tar sealed. And there's a heck of a lot of work just to bring the roads up to standard, let alone taking them forward with some resilience. So that's why we're here to talk to you today, is about what those needs are going forward into the future with that chunk of catch-up investment that's required. Going forward into the future, we have a huge amount of opportunity on the peninsula. In terms of economic opportunity, it comes in probably three major pieces. First being tourism. The events over, both with COVID and with the rain events, we've had a massive impact on tourism. But going forward with more resilient roads, and in particular certainty that when people want to come, they know they can come and the roads are going to be there and they're going to be able to get out again. We have significant opportunity in tourism, particularly on the shoulder seasons, to bring more into our economy. The aquaculture industry, of course, a big favourite of mine. We're already seeing around a quarter of New Zealand's aquaculture product coming out of the Coromandel and the offshore area there. The aquaculture industry has $1 billion target, which is basically scaling up tenfold, and the massive opportunity is actually in our area. And the last one being kiwi fruit. We have 3.5% of all New Zealand's kiwi fruit coming out of the Coromandel, and we have opportunities there to increase that. So at this point, I'm just going to hand over to Stephen just to talk through the money side of things.
Thanks, Aileen, through you, Chair. What we just wanted to reinforce today in this rare in-person opportunity is to ask the hearings committee and later the approving committee to keep in mind that now that the State Highway Investment Proposal has been released, we have a bit more clarity that the North Island Weather Event Councils are in a queue for some direct funding for that repair and resilience work. I think, if I'm right, Auckland is still not certain, but Northland, Bay of Plenty, Hawke's Bay, and what we've done together in the Coromandel is pretty clear that there are resilience challenges that if we can meet over the next 15 to 20 years, our ratepayers and road users will thank us for that leadership. We don't know exactly when that North Island weather event funding might be announced. It might be a pre-budget announcement, it might be part of the budget, or it might be part of work towards the National Land Transport Program in about September. So we just want to make it really clear to everyone that we're in a queue and the process is not over, and we need the Coromandel Roads proposal and our other bids to stay in their high-ranking place in the RLTP, because if they don't, we get into some territory where there may be a technical exclusion of that program because of the way the LTMA works. So I hope I'm not telling people what they already know, but it's critical that this process follows its current course and that we're able to work with Waka Kotahi to what we hope will be to land a really good result and enable the region to support the Coromandel, because I think there is a real sense of it's their turn to have some priority investment make life better for the 34,000 usually residents who reside in that area, and to connect business, health, education, tourism, and so on. And if we can secure that investment, we're going to make a lot of people very happy that we're on the right road, no pun intended, to a more united community and a more confident one, and one that is, I guess, it's kind of a new beginning to have the community boards and the council submitting and appearing in person and singing from the same song sheet. And we hope that that will continue into the future. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Stephen and Aileen and Councillor John, for taking the time and energy to come down and present the submission in front of the panel, the committee today. Any questions for the team? No, if not, then again, thank you for coming in. Appreciate it. Okay, next up we'll have Adrian Catron, and I think, Adrian, you'll be presenting on two of your submissions, is that right? The Twentyman's Funeral Directors and then also the Thames Community Board.
Just a bit of background on Adrian. He's he may or may not be known to you, but he's been around local government politics for a very long time. He's been a councillor for a number of terms on TCDC. He was deputy mayor for a period of time, community board chair now. In actual fact, was my mentor when I first got involved in local body politics back in around 2000. So Adrian does know his stuff. He's very experienced.
Thanks, councillor. Afternoon, Adrian.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the Regional Transport Committee. So firstly, I'm going to speak about the Thames Community Board. See the staff look at me. I hope you can hear. Wow. Okay. So this is separate to Thames-Coromandel District Council submission and focuses on the local area, which includes a 50k stretch of coastline from Waikawao to Hikatai in the south, and the population of Thames Community Board area is 11,800, with the majority residing in the township of Thames. Although made separately, we're in full support of the TCDC submission, which covers the district-wide strategic view, includes as roading controlling authority, and responds to high-level questions in the consultation pack. All the Thames and Thames Coast communities agree that they want more reliable and safe road network and are supportive of greater resilience investment. The loss of 25A and the ongoing long-term fragility of the roading network had a huge impact in the area, and we share the following examples of impact on people's lives. Now, I might just add that these are anecdotal examples, and I presume that the committee has read the submission, so I'm just going to paraphrase them. Health emergencies, a woman on kidney dialysis. The problem there was that the road was closed in both directions, and the only way she could get out to Waikato Hospital for her kidneys was a Westpac helicopter had to land at Tairua. So you can imagine the stress that woman was undergoing for that. This other one has occurred in 2018, but relates to State Highway 25, which the woman is in labour, and she couldn't get from Tairua, and she couldn't get from where she was going to get to the hospital, and she was actually flown out to Waikato Hospital traumatic as her baby was very high risk. The baby was born at Wellington Hospital after the woman was transferred from Waikato Hospital due to a very young age of the baby. So again, that was a difficult has incurred there because the road is closed. Day-to-day problems we have, such as missed hospital appointments, are quite critical. They cost both the families and all the health system by people not attending hospitals and getting their appointments seen to. So one man had a cardiac problem and he went to the area, local emergency centre at Te Puru, and they managed to calm him down and were able to support him. He was extremely worried about missing his hospital appointment. This is critical that our roads remain open at that point. At one stage, the locals were using a boat to get around the closure of the Ruamahanga Bay ferry, and so it's important they were ferrying important supplies and children to school, which, you know, you kind of wonder, do we need to have people in boats shifting people around because the road's closed? No, the road should be kept open. Businesses cancelled appointments again for restaurants and things like that. Sadly, some coastal businesses are now up for sale and others have almost closed due to aftermath of the storm. Since the road system played a vital role in the local economy, we must maintain and improve it. Lost revenue. Cafes and Thames experience hardship when 25 and 25A are closed, or were closed, that should be. A local cafe owner advised estimate that the continued road closure, both 25A and the Coast Road, have cost in the vicinity of $25,000 to $30,000 in lost revenue compared to the previous year. That's a colossal loss to a sole operator in a cafe. Supply issues, retail businesses. People had difficulty in getting supplies. One of the problems we had was the supply trucks were using GPS and trying to get over the Tairua-Pāuanui road. So we tried to get Google to change that, and we had one truck put its trailer over the bank. They had serious problems getting supplies to Coromandel and Whitianga, Tairua and Whangamata. And one shop owner advised that some of her regulars have found her in tears when they came into her shop because she just couldn't get supplies to her business. So her final comments were that she's been incredibly stressed and often cried herself to sleep. And I don't think people should have to do that in those circumstances. Increased operational costs for businesses that use vehicles to provide service around the Coromandel Peninsula. Many businesses have reported increased costs of travelling and additional hours to provide the service. This is a form of increased fuel cost, increased wear and tear on the vehicles, and additional costs to staff, travel times and extra distance. Not-for-profit organisations had trouble getting people into their appointment books. Thames Hospital road closure at Ngāti Maru Highway stops all traffic from entering and exiting Thames on State Highway 25. There's no other road access into Thames when 25 is closed. An emergency, this is problematic, especially when there are medical emergencies. Road closures due to weather, events and motor accidents occur on that stretch of road. That's the part for the Thames Community Board. I'll go direct into the second part, or do you want to?
Well, Adrian, I'll just see if there's any questions first from the committee, just
Not a
on
problem,
the community.
Mr. Chair.
Any commission, any questions for Adrian on that? Yep, Kevin.
No, more of a comment. Adrian, thank you for your submission and for your words today. It actually echoes a number of other submitters we've had from your region, and I'm at risk of taking words out of your mayor's mouth. I'm sure they are well supported. So thank you.
Okay, Adrian, yep.
Appreciate your comments. The next one I'm more familiar with. Okay, I operate a business 24/7 in the funeral sector. Twentyman's Funeral Services Limited is New Zealand's oldest operating funeral home, having been established in 1867. So we had to make various changes to our operating procedures because of the closure of 25A and 25. With the sudden closure of 25A, the company had to make dramatic changes to operating procedure as follows. A staff member who lived in Tairua was unable to come and work for us anymore because of the extra distance of travel, some 4 hours in travel. So she had resigned, which is really difficult in our business to get people to work for us anyway in the first instance in the funeral industry. We lost one staff member with the closure of 25A. The second staff member lived in Tairua. Twentyman's Funeral Service had to assist her in buying a house in Ngātia so she could come on and live on the western seaboard, thus allowing her to remain employed and her son to continue his education at Hauraki Plains College. I might add a lot of Hauraki Plains College students that couldn't get to school either when the road was closed. Twentyman's currently holds a coronial contract with the Ministry of Justice, which requires the company to be on call every minute of every hour of every day, 365 days a year, for sudden and unexpected deaths. A contract Twentyman has held since 1930. That's as far back as our records go. I'm sure we had it before then. The contract has KPIs around expected travel times, which staff are unable to meet. And then we had to justify them on our login thing. So Ministry of Justice didn't cut us any slack because the road was closed. We had to justify why we're taking extra time. What would normally take 45 minutes, for example, to travel to Tairua for standard removal of a deceased person, then morphed into a 2-hour drive to Tairua, 2-hour drive back home, around about 4 hours in total plus waiting time by Waihi and Whangamata. So additional cost of travel had to be passed on to families, though Twentyman tried to minimise the true cost wherever possible by not charging a full kilometre travel cost. To be called out to Mercury Bay area, for example, staff had to travel via Coromandel and any points on the eastern seaboard between Hotwater Beach, Cooks Beach or Hahei. The decision had to be made whether via Coromandel or Waihi. In earlier days of the 2023 road closure, the company had vehicles caught between various road closures, such as being called out to Whangamata only to find that the road closed behind them at Whiritoa. So they had to exit as they tried to exit. So they had to turn around and come back, and then the driver was forced to go north through Whiritoa and Coromandel. This is at night, I might add. The extra drive time added to a company's cost each time this occurred. Families who had a death in the family were on many occasions unable to have a proper farewell for their loved ones. Deja vu of the COVID-19 era. Cremations rates increased to such a level the company had to operate the cremator 7 days a week with associated costs of staff so the relatives could have the ashes back as soon as possible because they couldn't hold funerals while the road was closed. Twentyman are forced to develop new protocols very quickly for transporting deceased persons, including advising families that they could transport the loved ones directly to Twentyman's. The New Zealand Police tried to shut this option down, but Twentyman's continue with it as some families are using the forestry roads to bring the loved ones to Thames. Mind add, there's only a small number of families that did that. Twentyman's had to develop a website where families could do all the paperwork online, costly to implement because a secure portal is required. The wear and tear on our vehicles above normal levels. Is that locked on 2 minutes? That's great. The wear and tear on the vehicles is above normal levels, mostly tyres, brakes, plus minor damage to the suspension system because the road surface is being in poor state. The uncertainty about the reopening of 25A was additional stress to everyone from client families to staff and their families. The closure of various roads on the peninsula virtually overnight showed the fragility of our roading system. Twentyman will take some years to recover the lost revenue from the closure of 25A in the Tairua-Pāuanui. Just as a side, the Tairua-Pāuanui we felt could have been picked up earlier in the piece, and maybe that was open to allow access across the peninsula to take place of 25A. We could have called it 25B, and it would have made a big difference to us to get across there. So it was a little unfortunate that option wasn't taken. I also have another business for pet owners. Twentyman's operate another company called Forever Pets Crematorium, and the families on the eastern seaboard had to deliver their pets to Thames, meaning more stress to the families. The staff had a very difficult time explaining over the phone to pet owners that they may have to put their pet in a deep freeze until the roads were once again safe to use. Just to emphasise how stressful this is to pet owners, a lady from Whiritoa delivered a frozen cat to Forever Pets, where the cat had been in the freezer for over 12 months. The lady couldn't bear to take the cat out of her freezer until 23rd of February 2024. The mental anguish and trauma she experienced from all accounts were dreadful, as you can imagine. Finally, I trust you will take the submission into consideration when planning the investment in roading on the Coromandel Peninsula. The impact on my business was immense, and all other business too for that matter, but the impact on my business was immense. I trust that the planned investment in roading will minimise future road closures. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian, and that's why I like presenters submitting, coming in and personally doing their submissions in front of this panel, because the passion I can hear in your voice. I'm not supposed to make a statement, but the Thames-Coromandel has been very highly talked about and discussed in this committee and with the agencies, and I'm sure you'll see why. That's why our resilience is so high in our priorities in our plan. So yeah, I just thought I'd just say that, but thank you. Any questions for Adrian through the? No? No, so thank you very much again, Adrian, for submitting on both of those, the Twentyman funerals and the community board.
I appreciate the time that the committee has given to us to hear for Team Coromandel, and we look forward to a positive outcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, as a matter of interest, I spent from 2004 to 2010 on the Regional Transport Committee for Waikato Regional Council, in those days Environment Waikato. So I'll be listening carefully and reading intently what you have to say after this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Okay, next we have Gavin Jeffcoat from the Coromandel-Colville Community Board. Good afternoon, Jeff. Gavin, sorry.
Right, that's right. I answer to both.
Yeah.
It happens quite frequently, probably almost as much as Eileen. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity to present on behalf of the remote, older, poorer, less mobile, diverse communities of the Northern Coromandel Peninsula. I must admit I didn't have very much confidence for a start when I looked at the summary document for the draft plan, and I see in the map we're actually hidden underneath a text box. Perhaps a Freudian slip, some might say, but hopefully after hearing our submissions today, we'll know that that's not the case. You all have read in our community board submission the very real, personal, cultural, safety and economic issues that have resulted from people not having access to a resilient roading network. People sleeping on the side of the road with the bodies of their loved ones is not acceptable, nor are young people losing their jobs because they cannot repair the damage that's been caused to their cars by substandard roads. This plan is the potential, the execution of the plan has the potential to go a long way to avoiding those things from happening again and again and again. Chair Downer has highlighted in the forward to the draft plan that nowhere have the devastating effects nature can inflict on our transport system been more evident in the last 12 months than on the Coromandel and rural networks. And elsewhere later that resilience is a critical component of the plan. If we're reading through the plan, under strategic objectives, climate change and resilience have been grouped together for a combined weighting of 40%. At first blush, you can see the connection. Climate change increases climatic impacts, which reduces resilience. The two do kind of go hand in hand. However, we could spend our entire transport budget on reducing carbon and make an immeasurable impact on climate change. Don't get me wrong, not advocating for ignoring our impact on the planet. However, I feel that lumping the two together runs the risk of either being sacrificed for the other. Likewise, accessibility and growth. Accessibility is a key issue for us on the Northern Coromandel Peninsula. The Coromandel Thames Connector Bus enables people to attend appointments, meet family, or just spend time in the bright lights of Thames. We're extremely grateful to the Waikato Regional Council for helping funding this critical link. And we're also heartened by talk of maintaining connectivity across the water as a key opportunity. While these links would inevitably lead to growth within our area, placing them together with meeting the growth needs of a growing city puts them at risk, I feel. The resilience strategic objectives include ensuring communities have route security and access to essential services. You can see from the real life examples that this is not currently the case. Unfortunately, the plan to address this defines success as reducing state highway closures by 10%. We would ask, what about the people who can't reach the state highway? Resolving these issues will enable surety and confidence. Overseas tourists can book their holidays well in advance, confident of knowing they'll be able to get to the beautiful places on the peninsula that they're not only paying for, but they're committing time, very limited time, on the other side of the world going to see. At the moment, that's currently not the case. Businesses can invest knowing that they can get the supplies that they need. They know people can come and use those supplies and services. Families can settle and grow in the area, enjoying the lifestyle that Coromandel delivers, confident knowing that their children can get educated, they can get support for their health needs, they can work in the businesses that are growing. Currently, that's not the case. So surely any conversation regarding resilience must include those living beyond the tar seal, those older, poorer, less mobile, diverse people living under that text box. Thank you.
Thank you, Gavin. Any questions from the committee? Yeah, Mayor Len.
Gavin, thank you. Just a question, if I may, on the rural sector. We've had a submission from Federated Farmers. Now they weren't able to present in person. We don't quite know why. But could you talk to us about your experience with farmers in the rural sector having problems with getting stock off the farms and how that impacted the Coromandel area through the storm period?
Yeah, so both land-based and marine-based farming are impacted by the ability to get supplies and sell their product. The farms in the northern Coromandel Peninsula for a long period of time that weren't able to be accessed by truck. So the farms miss out on the input at critical times. Farming is a very time-critical business. Fertiliser needs to go on at a particular time. Stock needs to come off to make way for more stock and also to rest the land. So the farms who are already struggling in the Northern Peninsula were having to hold stock for longer periods of time before they could get rid of them. Also, in order to sell the stock when they could, they're walking them down the road a long distance to be met by smaller trucks to carry them to a staging point where they can then be swapped into larger trucks, increasing cost and making what is already a marginal business, I would suggest, even more difficult. And same with the aquaculture, the mussels, they are very much time sensitive. They need to come out of the water and be processed and stored appropriately, very, very limited shelf life. So any restrictions due to the road network severely impacts that. They have that window of opportunity that they need to meet. And again, to invest further into the future, they need confidence that they will be able to meet those windows. Currently, it's not the case.
Thank you, Gavin. That helps to fill out the picture. Appreciate it.
Okay, any other from the committee members? Any other questions? If not, thank you very much for coming this afternoon and presenting in front of the panel. Okay, next we've got online, we've got John Grant with the Mercury Bay Community Board, or from the way from beautiful Whitianga.
Thank you very much. Hopefully you can hear me well. So I am, as I've been introduced, John Grant. I'm a councillor and I live in Mercury Bay and sit on the Mercury Bay Community Board, and as such I've been asked to provide some and speak to the submission that we made on the 5th of March, and I'll take that as being that with some further comments. I'd like to thank you all for participating in the subcommittee, and as a councillor I fully understand the responsibilities that brings to each and every one of you, and I was only asked to do this last Friday to do the presentation when our chair became unavailable. Chrissy sends her apologies, and I know that she wanted very much to speak to the submission that's been made. And I can tell you that since Friday, I've had some restless time while I have been contemplating what words I should provide in support of this submission. And I ended up getting up early this morning at around 5:30 to actually prepare the notes for what I will present today. I see it as a very serious submission from an area that has been through a very challenging time over the last 15 months. And I feel a great weight on my shoulders today and at the same time some conflict, because by telling you what I would like to get across this afternoon, I feel in a way I'm actually both emphasising our desperate situation, but I'm also making the situation worse by raising this in a public forum. We live in a community with about 9,500 rateable properties, and roughly 50% of the non-resident ratepayers are non-resident ratepayers, with the need to obviously drive in and access properties from time to time. The permanent residents have chosen a beautiful and remote part of New Zealand to be their home, and it's easy to fall in love with Mercury Bay. We have such natural beauty with world-class beaches, great fishing, hunting, and terrific natural bush areas to enjoy. And the people who live in here are a diverse lot and made up with a high percentage of elderly people. Around half our population is over 65, and people who have made the decision to retire or move to Mercury Bay and enjoy all the area has to offer. However, for a number of these people, the events of the last 15 months have turned the dream upside down, and it's impacted people culturally, socially, financially, and has resulted in generally poorer health. It's important to understand this and why this has happened. And as much of this has to do with roading resilience, I want to explain this with examples that will hopefully help you in your deliberations. We have a particularly fragile part of the Coromandel. For our communities, we have limited access in and out of the region. Our largest town in Whitianga, with a population nearing 7,000 people. It's the northeastern hub of the peninsula that people travel to and from for a variety of reasons. The prime means of travel is by car. Over the last several years, we've had multiple closures of roads, both north and south, with well-known dubious spots like Wade Road, Dalmani Corner, Wharekaho, and further away areas like Hikawai to the south and Manaia to the west. Every time Met Service issues a watch or warning for heavy rain, the level of anxiousness increases. People come to Whitianga from outlying areas to work, attend school, or attend medical appointments. People also travel to and from Mercury Bay to see family, attend medical appointments, or to conduct business activities. The reliability of roading is critical to the fabric of our society, and it's been tested and has failed now on many occasions. This has directly impacted many businesses, schools, and health of our residents. Teachers have not been able to get to school. Students have been held back by anxious parents concerned that the children might not be able to come home over flooded roads, and families have been impacted by less visits from out-of-town children, depriving elderly communities of time with children and grandchildren. Also importantly, health has increased challenges as you get older. And from a personal perspective, last year I was diagnosed with grade 3 tumour and needed urgent treatment. It could only be provided outside of the Coromandel. The treatment comprised 25 sessions of radiotherapy and necessitated travel to and from Auckland. I relocated for the duration of the treatment, as 3.5 hours one way and a question mark on roads being open made this really the only viable option. This also resulted in long periods of separation and challenging time for my partner of 41 years. Another example comes from an employee of mine whose wife was receiving chemotherapy and having regular visits to see her oncologist. They live remotely in Coroglen and have numerous times that they couldn't get to or from appointments due to road closures. This level of uncertainty brings with it anxiousness at times that one is least capable of being able to manage. And these are just a couple of examples, and you just need to move around the community and talk to people, and you'll receive many more. Have a chat to the St John's team that operate out of Whitianga, and they will be able to tell you many, many similar examples. And I know of examples where children have missed out on sporting events due to road closures, where travel could not be undertaken. A half-day outing becomes a full day with road closures needing alternative and longer travel to and from events. I can also speak for communities like Otama, Opito, Hahei, Cooks and Hotwater Beaches. They take closures of their roads in their stride, but they are still impacted, and some areas were isolated from not just days, but weeks during Cyclone Hale and Gabrielle. This disruption has led to many to decide to relocate and move out of the district. We have a record number of properties currently on the market. As properties remain unsold, the prices start dropping, and we are seeing this happen now. People who have committed to make a move for health reasons are being prevented from doing so, as they can't sell their homes to release the funds they need to purchase elsewhere. The state of the roads, and specifically the reliability, has also impacted our tourist economy. People are reluctant to travel to the Coromandel, and reasons they give for this is reluctance, and they can't afford to get stuck there. Our roading infrastructure has dented the Coromandel brand to a point that less people are coming to visit. We have enjoyed one of our best summers, but the stats tell us that the cars travelling on State Highway 25 through Tairua were the second lowest, only to last year in the last 5 years. We need to restore confidence in our roading network, and when travel to or from the Coromandel is required, those travelling need high confidence of the roading network being open and not as vulnerable as they perceive today. In saying this, we do appreciate the efforts that were made on 25A and the work done on this and State Highway 25 to make repairs to damaged sections of this part of the state highway network. The proposals for investment in our roading network are not unreasonable, are urgent, and will restore quickly the reliability needed to reinstate confidence so desperately needed by all coming and going to the peninsula and to Mercury Bay. The underinvestment in our roads has been clearly demonstrated by the frequency of closures. Please now do something about this and support the LTP proposal for the increased spend that is so desperately needed to our roads and to the Mercury Bay area. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and thank you for presenting on behalf of your passionate community. Is there any questions from the committee for John? If not, no. So again, thank you, John. Another passionate presenter from that end, and you have a right. So we hear through even the past two submitters, just the devastation and the effect on people at grassroots. So we appreciate you presenting today.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, next we've got Warwick Brooks instead of Barry Roberts. Is that right, Warwick? Yep. Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board. Good afternoon, Warwick.
Mr. Chair, good afternoon, members. I'm presenting, as you heard, on behalf of the Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board. I have pleasure in presenting our submission on the draft Waikato Regional Land Transport Plan 2024-2054. It is made separately to the Thames-Coromandel District Council submission and focuses on the local ward area, which includes the urban beach communities of Tairua, Pāuanui, and the rural farming community of Hikawai. Although making separately, we are in full support of the Thames-Coromandel District Council submission, which covers a district-wide strategic view, including as a road controlling authority, and responds to the high-level questions in your consultation pack. All Tairua-Pāuanui communities agree that they want a more reliable, safe network and are supportive of a greater resilience investment. The loss of 25A and the ongoing long-term fragility of the roading network has had a huge impact on the Tairua-Pāuanui area. We share the following examples to illustrate the impact on people's lives. There are special needs students who attend specialist schooling in Thames. With the loss of 25A, these students were suddenly faced with a 2-hour one-way trip to school. This meant that attendance for the education that they were entitled to was compromised by the long travel times, 4 hours of travelling, 4 hours of schooling. Without doubt, it became a contributor to the tiredness for the students. It is a credit to the people who actually did the transport that there was no major issues of behaviour or of safety, but the potential was certainly there. The importance of having alternative routes when State Highway 25A is closed at times, it is vital to get these students home from school. There were a number of high school students that attended Thames and Hauraki Plain colleges. With the loss of 25A, it was necessary for some families to relocate for 10 months at a considerable expense, both in economic terms, rent and vehicle costs, and in human terms by splitting up families for part of the week. The closure of the roading network affected our two communities more than any others with financial downturns. As an example, one of the local hospitality venues had a 90% drop in income. This summer has been helpful, but Tairua and Pāuanui businesses face ongoing issues of staffing that affect their long-term viability, coupled with trying to catch up with the summer's lost revenue. It should be noted that these two communities were the hardest hit in economic terms than any other business community on the Coromandel. Medical appointments in Thames and Auckland had an extra hour plus added to their travel time. For the community health shuttle, it meant longer travel times at increased cost, increased pressure of time on the volunteers who drive the shuttle, and longer days travelling for patients who already had health issues. Adding to the issues for the people of Tairua-Pāuanui area was the fragility of the Karangahaki Gorge link. This went down a number of times, trapping groups on a number of occasions on the Tairua side, with only the only option being via the Kaimai Range Road, as the Coast Road was also closed. This is also a fragile link, easily closed by accidents as well as weather events. The loss of our roads had an impact on our emergency services, as there were no alternative available at times. When roads were open, long detours put both crews and patients at increased risk. Travelling on poor roads and very poor weather conditions adds to the stress and also the risk. Patients were faced with not only the long, arduous journey to Thames, Tauranga or Waikato, but then there was the changeover from one ambulance to another, partway through to enable local ambulances to make their long trips back to their stations. There were some residents who had to relocate as their jobs made a commute from Tairua-Pāuanui impossible in a practical sense. The loss of these families is a loss to our communities, and we can only hope that they might return in time. Farming community faced increased costs for freight delivery and with stock cartage. Transport companies would not move stock unless there was a sufficient number to fill a whole truck and trailer. Also, stock sales were down as it was not economical for buyers to travel a longer distance to inspect the stock before purchase. This meant that farms had to carry more stock than they normally would and also reduce their sales income. With the initial closures of State Highway 25 and 25A, milk had to be dumped as tankers could not get to the farms to empty the vats. The extra time delays also caused concern and worries with veterinary services to animals. The return trip travel time of 4 hours severely impacting the receiving of animal health products and other supplies to the farming community. Conclusion, all Tairua and Pāuanui communities are supportive of greater resilience investment, as a more reliable network will greatly support the quality of life in the Tairua-Pāuanui ward area. We also are in support of the investment into both the Graham and Pepe Stream bridges. Thank you.
Thank you, Warwick. Any questions from the committee? No? Thank you again, Warwick, for coming and presenting
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break because our last presenter today is about 5 minutes away. Is that right? Or maybe 10 minutes. Okay, so if we're back here in 10, you'll probably turn up at the door, but yeah. Okay, so we'll take a break for 10 minutes. Yeah, Whangamata, that's the last one. Neil Evans, yeah. Call it break.